You know, the free will debate has been raging for, well, centuries. It feels like a philosophical stalemate. But what if the whole problem isn't hidden in our brains or our souls, but it's actually a glitch in our language? Today, we're not going to just look at another opinion. We're diving into a formal, logical proof that says the very idea of free will is an impossibility. The claim? The debate's already over. Let's see how they make that case. Right off the bat, the source material draws a really hard line in the sand. You've got the typical debates on the left, you know the ones, they're philosophical, scientific, and they just go on forever. But on the right is what this proof claims to be. It says the answer isn't in a lab or some ancient text, it's right there in the definitions of the words. It's a closed case, solved with pure logic. And here it is, the core claim. And wow, is it a big one. The argument isn't that free will is just, hard to prove. It's that the concept is a straight-up logical contradiction, just like saying married bachelor. The idea is that the words free and will, once you define them with any real precision, basically just cancel each other out. That is an incredibly bold premise. So how exactly do you build a logical trap like that? Well, the real power of this proof, the secret sauce, is its precision. It completely throws out all the fuzzy, ambiguous language that has kept this debate going for so long, and instead, it builds its entire case on a foundation of razor-sharp definitions. First up, what do we even mean by will? The proof defines it not as just, wanting something. No, it's a really complex process that absolutely requires 5 key ingredients: desire, memory, perception, prediction, and evaluation. And here's the kicker. Take away even one of those, and the whole concept of will just falls apart. Okay, so what about freedom? Well, the proof goes right for the heavyweight champion, libertarian free will. This is the big one. This is the idea that you are the ultimate original author of your actions, completely free from any determining causes that you didn't yourself create. No strings attached. All right, now we get to the absolute heart of the entire argument, and this part is so crucial. The whole proof, every bit of it, stands or falls on a super rigorous analysis of just one of those components: desire. Why? Well, think about it. Without desire, you have no goal, and if you have no goal, you can't have will. It's the load-bearing wall of the whole structure. So, according to the proof, for something to count as desire, it has to meet 4 really strict conditions. It has to represent a gap between how things are and how you want them to be. It has to actually motivate you to act. It has to go away once you get what you want, and it has to stick around even when things get in your way. It's almost like an engineering spec for an emotion. And all of that leads us to this incredibly simple but powerful insight. To desire something is to lack it. You can only want what you don't have. Now, the source argues this isn't some philosophical opinion. It's an analytical truth, something baked into the very meaning of the word desire. So what does that really mean? It means desire isn't some free-floating magical state. To even have a desire, to recognize that you lack something, you need to perceive the present and remember the past. So desire, by its very nature, fundamentally embeds you in a web of cause and effect that you didn't create. Okay, all the pieces are on the board. We've got our super precise definitions of will, of freedom, and of desire. Now let's watch the logical trap spring shut. And this slide just lays it out so perfectly. Look at the left side. Will, because it's built on things like memory and perception, requires that you're influenced by causes you didn't create, your past, your environment. But now look at the right. Freedom, by its own definition, strictly forbids any causal influence that you didn't author yourself. The conclusion is, well, direct and brutal. The conditions for will and the conditions for freedom are mutually exclusive. You simply can't have both at the same time. Will requires the very thing that freedom forbids. That means the phrase free will is a contradiction in terms. Checkmate. Now, at this point, you can almost hear the objections firing up, right? Philosophers, theologians, they're all going to be looking for an escape hatch. But the proof anticipates this. It claims to have sealed off every possible exit, turning this logical trap into a completely sealed room. So what's the first escape route people try? The appeal to the supernatural. You hear it all the time. Surely a perfect, all-powerful God isn't bound by this kind of logic, right? Well, the proof argues the exact opposite. A maximal agent like God would actually be the least free being imaginable. Why? For 3 big reasons. 1, Perfect knowledge means you'd always know the single best action, so there's no choice, only necessity. 2. Omnipotence means you lack nothing, so you can't have desire, and therefore you can't have will. And 3. Omniscience means you'd never have to think things over. You just act. Okay, fine. So the divine exit is sealed. What about the scientific one? This is a really popular idea these days. Maybe quantum mechanics, with all its inherent randomness and uncertainty, maybe that's where freedom gets the wiggle room it needs to exist. The rebuttal to this is swift, and it is powerful. Randomness is not authorship. A random event is, by its very definition, something that nobody controlled. It isn't an act of you taking charge, it's an act of giving it up. Just think about it for a second. If a random quantum particle zigs instead of zags in your brain and that makes you choose coffee instead of tea, was that decision more free? No way. It was less yours. A piece of your decision-making was just outsourced to pure chance. Randomness doesn't create agency, it reduces it. This brings us to the last major door people try to open. It's a big one, super popular with a lot of modern philosophers. What about compatibilism? This is the idea that, hey, maybe free will and determinism can get along just fine, as long as we redefine freedom to mean something like acting on your desires without somebody holding a gun to your head. The proof just dismisses this completely. It calls it a vocabulary maneuver. Basically, it's accused of just changing the definition of the word to something much weaker, declaring victory, and then changing the subject. The source argues this doesn't solve the core logical problem at all. It just dodges it. And this table here really just puts a bow on the entire case. It doesn't matter if an agent is finite like us, a maximal agent like a god, or any other kind of being you could possibly dream up. The conclusion is always the same. Just look at that final column, free will possible. The answer is a loud, clear no in every single case. So the whole case rests on these 4 independent pillars: the core contradiction between the definitions, the deep analysis of desire, the argument against a maximal agent having free will, and the physical tautology. To tear this down, you wouldn't just have to knock over one pillar, you'd have to defeat all 4. And the source material just lands its final point with this incredibly powerful statement. This is a claim of total victory, arguing that the concept of free will is just incoherent at every possible level you can imagine, from the physical all the way up to the metaphysical. Wow, a stark and really provocative end. According to this formal proof, the book on free will is closed. The debate's over. And that means the only real question left isn't if we're free, but what it means to live in a world where we know that we are not. What does that do to our legal system, our sense of right and wrong, our very understanding of who we are? That's the conversation that's left.